This has been a bit of a wild ride because we talked about sort of selling the news or selling the rumor, buying the rumor, selling the news. But now we've come back to buying.
Yeah. I mean, look, the verdict's in, right? Wall Street doesn't just like Bitcoin. They love Bitcoin. If you think of these assets, there's been over 5,500 ETF launches in history. Never have we had a fund get to $3 billion in AUM in the first 30 days. BlackRock and Fidelity both just did it. So two for the first time in history. And then if you look at Bitwise and 21 Shares, ARK, they're both going to hit $1 billion this year or this week. And so now you have 4 funds that are going to hit $1 billion of inflows. But the most interesting part of this is the inflows. I mean, these funds are doing $500 million a day of net inflows. But there's only 900 Bitcoin that is actually coming into the daily incoming supply. And so when you look at that, that's like $40 to $45 million. There's 12.5x more demand for Bitcoin than what's being produced on a daily basis.
So how much of this do you think is being generated by the ETFs themselves?
Well, I mean, you just measure the actual net inflows, right? And so you can just see there is way more buying pressure.
So you're saying $3 billion for BlackRock.
There's $4 billion now for BlackRock, 3.5 for Fidelity, and then you've got Bitwise and 21 Shares will both hit about $1 billion this upcoming week.
Total valuation though of Bitcoin, on the market cap, is $1 trillion. So isn't this a de minimis issue or no?
Now here's where it gets really interesting.
Most of these things aren't trading.
80% of all Bitcoin in circulation has not moved in the last 6 months. You have only about $200 billion is actually tradable. And so that means that these ETFs sucked up 5% of the entire tradable supply of Bitcoin in 30 days. I mean, Bitcoin has become Wall Street's favorite asset.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you're joining the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And we know anytime Bitcoin is pumping or if it's dumping, they have pump on the show. And right now, this time, pump contradicts itself. But they never talk about the 4th Industrial Revolution. But we know when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto, we normally get a pump at the beginning of the month. Sometimes it's more than others, but we get a pump at the beginning of the month. It's like clockwork. But of course, the sheep have no idea. Plus, we have anything connected to tech is still hitting all-time highs. Plus, we have the Dow, S&P, NASDAQ keep making new highs as we see, like Pump said, we're paying $1 trillion on this debt. And then on top of it, we have high interest rates. The dollar is fairly strong. None of it makes any sense whatsoever. And that's the reason why we know we're going to get a pullback. And we have a lot of shorters in the market, which again is going to cause assets to move up. And then they went over Bitcoin ETFs. And guys, Bitcoin ETFs are definitely going to take a lot of the volatility out. And Pump was asked, can Bitcoin 10x from here? After he stated if you invest in Bitcoin now, you're not going to retire. Then he was told Cathie Wood's prediction over the next 10 years. Remember, guys, over these next 10 years, we're going to be going through hyper deflation. And it's going to cause everything to get cheaper. And that's the reason why you want to have gold, silver, Bitcoin, diversify yourself on assets that are going to hold their value. Bitcoin wasn't called a commodity for any reason because we know the 4th Industrial Revolution entails the robots, algorithms, and drones taking this economy over. And the same thing with finances. They're not going to explain it to you on television. You have to do your own research. Now, we have the Bitcoin halving right around the corner in April. And again, guys, every halving that we've had a pump, we know the Fed was right behind it. And with this March 20th meeting, we know whether we're going to get one or we're not going to get one. That's the reason why we follow the Fed. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you. And then we had Michael Saylor. And guys, we know he's the spokesperson for Bitcoin. It's unbelievable because he's not even the CEO of MicroStrategy any longer. And we never get to see the CEO of MicroStrategy because we know Michael Saylor is the puppet for Morgan Stanley. Remember, Michael Saylor said Bitcoin stood no chance, the government would squash it. And we know why he made that statement because that's history. It shows us anytime a currency rises, the United States brings out that military machine. But guys, little did people know that the big banks and corporations were behind crypto from the beginning. Guys, remember this is biblical. And now Michael Saylor wants to rebrand the company as a Bitcoin development company because he knows all about the fourth industrial revolution. And anytime, guys, we see CEOs leaving a company or cashing out, we know something bad is around the corner. And they're doing the selling of their shares over a 12-month period. Like I told you guys, enjoy 2024. Because once this election is over, the house is going to start crumbling. Remember, we're in a fragmented world. They have to destroy this legacy market, which, of course, the United States is the one who's in charge of it. And also the United States World Reserve Currency. And you're going to see the rise of China, the BRICS nations, take over the global economy. And we saw that with all these Temu Super Bowl commercials. And it says shop like a billionaire. If you go online, people are definitely shopping like a billionaire. But little do they know, they are destroying themselves within. Because as soon as you hit that checkout and you pay, your money never circulated with your own people. It's going straight over there to China. And if you look at Walmart, and I don't even like Walmart either, because we know they have China goods, but at least they have to employ Americans. But guess what? When it comes to these apps, they don't have to. So again, we have the sheet falling for these cheaper goods. The same thing when Walmart came in and put all these mom and pops out of business, and that's exactly what's about to happen now. Temu is the finishing touches of America, and to save a few dollars, they will destroy themselves. And remember, the crypto teacher told you, because he knows. When it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
It used to take a lot for someone to invest in Bitcoin.
Yes.
It's real easy right now. And I don't know, are we going to 90,000 in a year? That'd be too weird. People don't double their money by buying an ETF in a year. So I think it might be a currency that you can use because it's going to stay at 47,000.
Well, look, the world is changing for sure. I mean, last year, the NASDAQ was up 50%, right? And so there's definitely these big moves that happen in the traditional markets. Bitcoin, obviously, is that on steroids. But the other thing that's now starting to happen, Fidelity just came out, and they've got a fund. It's an all-in-one fund out in Canada. And they're going to put 1 to 3% of that fund into the Bitcoin ETF. And so what you're going to start seeing is not just direct inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs. You're going to start seeing them putting Bitcoin into all of their funds because it, from a risk-reward standpoint, drastically improves the performance of these portfolios. And they're going to start to realize if I'm lagging indicators, if I'm lagging performance, if I put a little bit of Bitcoin, 1 to 3% into this portfolio, it's going to enhance my returns.
Bitcoin, I think it might be good if it stayed at 47,000 for a year because then people wouldn't worry about buying a pizza that's worth a Mercedes 2 years from now.
The joke in the Bitcoin community is the real Bitcoiners want the price to stay low so they can accumulate more of it, right? But obviously, when you have this much demand, the price got to go
a
up.
year from now, it's where?
It's much higher. I think that if this continues, if we have 12 and a half times more demand than we do incoming daily supply, and remember the halving is coming, so we're going to go from 900 Bitcoin to 450 Bitcoin a day. I mean, this thing's going back to its all-time high. It's pretty much guaranteed at this point.
What's that other thing called, Becky, whenever we talk about the halving? You know, where we all go up to heaven and something. Someone's left behind.
The rapture?
The rapture. Halving is like the rapture to you really hardcore.
Is going to dampen over time just as it gets larger and as the holder base changes. One of the things that hasn't happened in the Bitcoin community previously is things like rebalancing. And so when you all of a sudden give financial advisors an asset, and let's say you have a 1% allocation and it goes to 5%, you're going to sell. You're going to rebalance that portfolio. And so when the holder base is changing, you have to understand that the return profile will come down. And so if you think that you're going to buy Bitcoin and it's going to help you retire, those days probably are behind. But what it will do is outperform stock.
But then you're not in the camp of the Kathy Woods $500,000 million base case Bitcoin valuation issue. Because, by the way, if that's true, then you can retire.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, it depends on the timeline, right? So if you're saying it's going to go from 50,000 to 500,000, which is 10x, and that's going to happen over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I think she thinks that that's what's going to happen.
That's not that crazy, right? I mean, again, NASDAQ was up 50% last year. I'm not saying NASDAQ's going to go up 50% every year, but we live in a world where it has completely lost all ties to reality because we are printing an enormous amount of money. The interest payment on the debt is $1 trillion, right? It was a video game number. And so in that world, how much are these assets worth when the denominator is just being debased away? They're going to be worth a lot more. You can just start putting zeros on the end of the values of these assets.
Well, I think a lot of this is just indicative of the popularity of Bitcoin as an asset class. It's now the world's most popular investment asset. It's novel, it's digital, it's global, it's unique, and it's uncorrelated to traditional risk assets because it doesn't come with exposure to any given country, currency, company, quarterly result, product cycle, competitor, not to weather, not to war, not to an employee base or supply chain. And so that makes it a natural addition to the portfolio of a responsible investor. There's 10 years of pent-up demand. People have been waiting for these ETFs, and finally, mainstream investors are able to access Bitcoin. And I think that's what's driving the surge of capital in the asset class. And initially, there was a rebalancing as people were moving capital between the futures market and the miners and MicroStrategy and the ETFs. But following that rebalancing, I think the assets found its footing. And now people are beginning to realize that there's 10 times as much demand for Bitcoin coming in through these ETFs as there is supply coming from the natural sellers who are the miners.
Yeah, and of course we're going to get the halving event, which imagine will sort of shift some of those supply-demand dynamics coming into the spring as well. Earnings last week, you rebranded the company or announced the rebranding of the company as a Bitcoin development company. What does that mean?
Well, it's a natural decision for us, given the success of our Bitcoin strategy and our unique status as the world's largest public company holder of Bitcoin. MicroStrategy is an operating company that can actively manage its capital structure and its business operations with more flexibility than an investment trust, which is what these spot ETFs are. So we're going to develop software. We're going to generate cash flow. We're going to leverage the capital markets, all in order to accumulate more Bitcoin for our shareholders, and also to promote the growth of the Bitcoin network. Given the fact that the majority of enterprise value is now based upon those Bitcoin-related activities, it makes sense for us to call ourselves a Bitcoin development company in the same way as you see a real estate development company or a petroleum development company.
Jeff Bezos selling part of his Amazon stock for the first time in more than 2 years, offloading nearly 12 million shares. That's worth about $2 billion plus. Deirdre Bosa on what that might mean for investors in today's Tech Check. Morning, Dee.
Hey, morning, Carl. Maybe something, maybe nothing. To be clear, there are many reasons why insiders sell stock in their companies. Diversification, personal finance needs, Miami personal income tax, perhaps, in this case. It is not necessarily an indication of the top, but it is interesting to note that the last time we saw Bezos, in particular, sell significant shares in Amazon, that was in 2021, just ahead of that 2022 downturn, a year in which the NASDAQ fell more than 30%. Back then, we were at a similar moment. Stocks were hitting fresh record highs. Tech valuations had the pandemic and digital transformation winds at their back. It would not last. Many could argue, though, that this time is different. You've got higher interest rates, tech's focused on profitability, this efficiency drive, and the generative AI wins, you could argue, are stronger and more sustainable. But should note, stocks are again hitting record highs, and the NASDAQ is getting back to 2021 levels. Speculative stocks and assets, they're back too. Kathy Wood's ARK ETF, it's up 30% over the last 3 months. And then there's Bitcoin, flirting with 50K. Bezos's latest share sale, it could also just be the start, so it's worth keeping an eye on. In a regulatory filing, Amazon says Bezos plans to sell as many as 50 million shares over the next 12 months. Other mega-cap CEOs, they've also been selling, though, to a much smaller extent. You've got Zuckerberg, one of the top insider sellers of Meta stock over the last 3 months, and Jensen Huang with NVIDIA shares over the last 3 months. But again, we're talking millions, not billions of dollars worth of share sales. Now, the backdrop for Bezos' sale, it's interesting for another reason, guys. NVIDIA's market cap surpassed that of Amazon's this morning. I got a bit of history for you. The last time we saw a more valuable NVIDIA than Amazon was back in 2002 when they were each worth under $6 billion. This is now $1 trillion rate.
Why in the world would they want to promote a company that the CCP is basically linked to when they are selling things online, sort of like Amazon, using forced labor. This is America's game. The Super Bowl is America's game. There were millions and millions of people watching this. And so the fact that they spent, so I've been told, $15 million.
Going to a different economy. And we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is, it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of a huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we can have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting it more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told its members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will, during that auction that we saw a little bit before. The attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets.
Now, it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy, and when the dealers have to step in to save a treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence. And
Teacher and the new World Order book, plus the 3 kids books, It's Time to Re-Educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get home stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks, And while everybody's at on wishing, they were still getting that free money. What are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. You know, I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Temu save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Temu save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Temu goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.